The rest of the map, which stopped them tangling from the likes of your BLG and your JDG. We're going into Game 2, though, and it's halfway towards that carry matchup again. It's the Renekton, but there's a Nidalee on board as well. That is a topside snowball draft.
Yeah, there's a Nidalee on board. There's also a Tristana AD carry on the side of LNG. I feel like LNG are saying, look, we got to change something up here. We got to shift how we're approaching this one. Blitzcrank versus Milio in the support matchup as well. It's an exciting draft, and Scout pulled back over by On. Going to be forced to flash. The Ignite actually comes out as well at the last second to Shun. So you're going to keep looking for more. Spear dodged by Scout.
Okay, so flash away from one of the solo laners for the cost of an Ignite for On. Going through this draft, though, what the heck happened to let the LeBlanc through, which is currently in its static Shiv hype train right now, and then also the Tristana Milio, which we have seen rise to prominence through OMG playing it in the bot lane. They use it as a Yuumi Aphelios counter in a couple of their games. You get to have a really good laning phase because you bypass a little bit of Tristana's short range by having that early game range increase from that cozy campfire.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I'm curious about the draft, but at this point, I'm just here to enjoy it. I'm here to get amongst it because the Blitzcrank versus LeBlanc as well is always a really fun matchup to watch because we saw just there at the level 1, jumps over the wall, On is ready, knows where he jumped from, and can find the grab as you jump back. So look out for that in team fights as well. It can be quite hard to spot because there's so much going on in a lot of these fights, but keep your eyes on throughout this game because not only is Blitzcrank exciting anyway, but On's Blitzcrank, it's like the caviar of Blitzcrank.
It's very good into the Milio as well. It typically went, oh, that's a jump level 1, okay.
Yeah, Gala's not messing about. Hail of Blades going to be getting dividends there as Elk take it down to half already. Gala just going to be waiting for that cooldown and rinsing and repeating.
Sometimes we see the lethal tempo, particularly in this lane, because the Milio can help you keep auto-attacking as that Tristana, but early laning presence, you can see already. Alex says, yeah, I don't want to play against the Halo Blades, level 2 Tristana, that is death. Chooses not to opt into that. Gala, however, will be able to shove this wave in. Next one, okay, yeah, you can buffer too, okay, yeah.
Yeah, magnificent from Gala here. Yeah, trying to push the wave in. On tries to punish it, but he knows that's coming. Straight off of the bat. Yagao takes a bit of a trade, and that's going to be Electrocute procced by Scout. Nice stuff coming out so far in the mid lane as the wave will crash. Luckily, there is a cannon, so Elk should be able to get here in time for the majority of this CS. Good guy On pulling the minion in so he can CS it on behalf of Elk. As Yagao's in trouble, the chains land. Scout doesn't have any more in the tank, but my goodness, he is putting pressure on in this mid lane.
Yes, and he's got that electric. It's not the fleet footwork. I mean, when you see the static shift, that's often the rune that we go towards, but LeBlanc, Syndra, always been an interactive matchup. Scout, one of the very best players of that matchup as well, and this champion doing well in the early game to stop Yagao getting ahead in the same way he did in Game 1.
You know, it's kind of funny, isn't it? Because we saw Scout saying the veteran mid laners have an advantage in this meta because they've got that experience on multiple play styles. Well, we've got Yagao versus Scout, two of the most veteran mid laners in the entire league, and we get Syndra versus LeBlanc, which, I mean, this is an old school matchup. This is something we used to see way back when, like 2014, I'm thinking, for this matchup. So fantastic to see like this veterancy on display, and you just know that we're going to get some really high moments in the mid lane.
Man, in fact, this was the kind of matchup which was very popular with all of our big Korean mids in Season 3 as well. Of course, Faker made his name on that in Season 3, and Scout trained underneath Faker. We have to revisit that story every so often. The maestro of LeBlanc himself passing down the skills to someone else. And Scout, when you look at that game from Game 1, he almost had that ability to take over the game in the way which we've known him to do so many times. Now he has such a powerful champion on this patch. Really hoping that he can step up and be the carry once again. Root might come through from the Graviton there. I was wondering what was going to happen. Aphelios Blitzcrank very, very powerful in that regard. But that will quickly diffuse. We have once again a fairly slow early game.
I have just realized as well, you know how we always talk about the Nidalee Renekton in the top side, and how powerful it is, the point-and-click CC that sets up for the Nidalee? Well, we also have very easy-to-land CC for Yagao in the mid lane. And then also Graviton potentially available on the Aphelios with a Blitzcrank on top of the Nidalee. Like, every single lane is fantastic for Shun this game.
For sure. The only thing which is really going to be saving LNG from that is post-level 6. You're going to have the cleanse coming in from Hung, and of course you have cleanse on Gala already, which can help in regards to some of that. Can't really cleanse a hook, that one's a bit awkward, you have to buff that one. And of course, Ornn has his own Unstoppable on the Bellows Breath too. That has, in fact, even back in 2020, when we saw, that was the last real era of Renekton, Nidalee, and then stuff like Renekton and Lilia as well, dominance towards that top side. Ornn was a counter towards it at that point, because you were very hard to dive, you made yourself unstoppable, and you had a good amount of CC under turret. So Shun, very interested to see where he takes this Nidalee pick. Hasn't found that many early inroads into the enemy jungle or into the lanes yet.
I really miss Lilia being in the meta. I think she's such an entertaining champion to watch. She brings a lot of different style to the game than most junglers. Also a lot of entertaining moments. Looking at you, TSM. As Gravitum comes out, it's a good little hook off the back of it as well. Not quite under tower. Hung gets away with his life because of it. That must have been pixels away.
Close run stuff. One more tower shot would have at least forced the heal out. Maybe a double flash forward. Could have picked up first blood for BLG. However, it doesn't. Tarzan goes on towards this dragon, uncontested as of yet. Yagao didn't have teleport, it had been based. Shun just going back onto the map. BLG, this is opportunistic at best, hanging around in this river.
Just wondering if On feels the solo kill coming. Doesn't need to, because the team is here and finished off. Duskwave over the wall as well with Gravitum there. They could follow up on Tagala. Spear and pixel away here as Tarzan has to block. Gala forced a flash. That's all sums out of the bottom lane and a Drake taken.
But why is Hung walking up to On? Surely you know there's a chance that someone can be over that wall. He's the one person without flash at that dragon. Gets punished for it, not having your enchanter. Ready and able to buff up someone like your Tristana for that fight. Feels like the difference maker for LNG there. So suddenly BLG get first blood, get dragon out of a very opportunistic play.
Yeah, great little bit of fighting from BLG. And I mean, opportunistic play, I feel like that's BLG in a nutshell.
Does feel like it. This one feels like it's a little bit more on LNG, just saying, hey, you know the one guy without flash? What if he walks up into range of On? That felt a little bit awkward. El gets to free fire a little bit over the wall. First ult of the game from the Syndra comes through. That is a very close spear. I think the dragon would have blocked off the closer angle on that one. But Gala lucky to get away with his life. Doesn't get away with summoners though. Interested now to see if Elkanon can set up something onto the Tristana.
That'll be the question. All about buffering that W once again can be the difference between life and death in this lane, honestly. Absolutely on point, by the way, on the Blitzcrank so far. Like, hitting the level 1 pull onto Scout to blow the flash right in the first minute of the game. Finding hooks in the bottom lane. Finding hooks at the dragon fight. Like, he's really on point. Has the counter pick and using it to great effect.
Without those summoners towards bot side as well, you can see that On felt good enough to go towards mid lane. Hung out a Fog of War for a little bit to see if Scout would jump forward, play that mind game as you were highlighting earlier. Blitzcrank kind of firing at LeBlanc as she's mid-dash or towards her return point. Elk's going to collect this wave under turret. Trist is going to get maybe another full play. Yeah, Trist is such a good demolitionist. Not going to be able to take it on this wave. Still a significant amount of gold going over towards Gala and Hung. On not able to land the hook this time.
Love that from Gala. He's like, look, I got my W. You need to hook my support, not me. So just gets a bunch of free autos in onto On. Calls the bluff there. Has been returned to the top side. Herald taken by BLG. It's a great start for them, it has to be said. Over 1,000 gold up. They got the first Drake. They've got the first Herald. I feel like Gala is the bit of gold that matters right now for the side of LNG. Getting himself 2 plates already. Looking for a third if he can find it. The matchup feels favorable until On hits a hook, right? I feel like it's all on this matchup.
Definitely feels like it. However, later into the game, feels like Gala's range will really start contesting. Being on this Renekton as we see on screen, and so many of the other members of BLG. Nidalee, of course, post 20 minutes doesn't really feel like much of a champion unless you have a really large lead. We don't have that large lead yet, so BLG, the job is only half done. They have the Herald, they have the ability to punish the lack of these summoners again. But Tarzan's here in time.
Yeah, Tarzan moves over, saves the bottom lane, denies the potential Herald play as well, as On keeps on playing with vision, keeps on playing just outside of the vision of LNG. LNG so far, aside from the little oopsie at Drake, doing a good job of playing around this Blitzcrank. And Herald will just be committed to here. Should just be the 2 plates, but hey, 2 extra plates into Aphelios, you'll take that any day of the week.
Yeah, it's going to be a charge in, so that will be the case. Very important that LNG aren't forced off that turret, because there were the chakrams available for Elk. You can see those guns on his rotation right now. You let him go to that turret, that's the whole turret gone, despite the early pressure from Gala and Hung working out. Tarzan still heading around bot side. It is still bot side pressure, name of the game.
Got Bit of a scrap around the bottom lane here. 3v3 as both teams fight over the wave. Neither team wanting to concede much in the bottom lane, but does mean Elk can kind of just hold this wave now. Get it a bit of a freeze for himself, unless he wants to go for a recall himself, but in fact he will do so in the end. Sees that they've recalled, clears the wave.
So, LNG have survived through to their summoners coming back up. The only one that's not there right now is the Flash on Gala, but he has cleanse, so he's still relatively safe, and Hung has Flash, heal, and of course his ultimate online for that big AoE cleanse and everything else that it will bring to the team. So BLG not able to make the most out of those summoners they took earlier. Scout jumping forward, the awkward moment.
Oh, it's not great from Scout, is it? Shun really punishes Yagao. Just gets his magical outplay button on the R. 2 kills now for Yagao on a Syndra with 4 stacks on a Dark Seal. That feels pretty good for BLG. As Garl in trouble here. Graviton comes through on. Not there in time to follow up as Hung arrives. Shun, though, not far away from the lane. Even Yagao hovering towards the bottom side. On, wants the hook onto Gala.
Head scratcher. Do we call that one a yellow star? It's not Thresh, but he did miss everything. Not able to get the most out of that, but Tarzan gets hit by everything.
The spear lands, the ignite is there. See you later, Tarzan. Shun grabs himself a kill. LNG, I mean, I'm going to be honest, all 3 deaths so far, kind of awkward on their behalf.
Very cheap. That second one, of course, starting off with Scout, kind of jumping into River, it felt like LNG just disrespected the power of a Blitzcrank on reset compared to a Milio on reset. Milio, great in the team fights, great in the laning phase, but not awesome at these kind of 2v2 River skirmishes. The CC lands from BLG, and then suddenly Scout's down, you lose pressure over the bot side of the map because BLG can play with a numbers advantage. So now BLG get themselves a lot of gold, they get themselves another dragon. It's 2 early dragons, it's in good timing, and the soul is unfortunately Chemtech, but it's still a soul on the table. And this is exactly what we're talking about, right? Look at where Milio is on the map right now, so the timing isn't there for LNG. You don't have your support. Scout dodges out of the way, 1 skill shot, and then just is not in connection with his support when BLG are much more connected with their mid-jungle support.
I mean, it feels like that was a misclick, right? Jumping towards Shun there. Like, you know that Shun is there. He's just procced the Scryer's Bloom. I wonder if he'd, like, moved his mouse over to ping that and... I don't know. Just uncharacteristic mistake there from Scout because he's been having a hell of a split as well. But it feels a little bit like LNG across the board are not ready for this like long-range CC follow-up comp from BLG, right? Where the Blitzcrank, the Nidalee, the Syndra, even Calibrum from the Aphelios, there's so much follow-up if they land a single ability. And I'm not sure that LNG came in ready for this today because nobody's been playing this style of composition.
That's a little bit different. Of course, the Renekton, we knew that was around, and then you think, okay, Shun is a Nidalee player. He plays these carry champions. Maybe you could figure it out at some point, but it's not what BLG have shown before. So maybe some preparation been blindsided here by LNG. Either way, though, I think when they get towards 5v5s, they're absolutely fine. They have an Ornn, they have a Milio, they have the Tristana, but they haven't even been able to get towards that point. BLG would still love to have a large advantage going in towards those team fights because they're playing around a lot of snowbally champions. And as they speak with that, this is one way to do it. Just keep going into the enemy jungle.
Yeah, they just run forwards at Tarzan here. The Cyclone, though, punishes his Scout. Will help finish it off. Oh, the stun comes in, though! And Yagao's here to punish the play. Here comes Gala over the wall, though, looking for Scout himself. In fact, no, he's Scout's teammate. Scout gets out over the wall. And On looks for more. Hung with the heal to get a bit of movement speed. Elk can't find much of anything. Someone is burnt here. It's a 4,500 gold lead for BLG.
It's starting to get a little bit scary. They need this kind of lead. Don't get me wrong. You have the Nidalee. You have a lot of champions which want to be ahead in gold. But this is the way you do it. And LNG feels like they're just disrespecting again. No ult cooldown from Scout. Is he just dead again?
Oh, On hit the turret. It's a nightmare. The W going to be used by Scout. Will he pop back to it? No. Commits. Walks away. And they're like, you know what? We ain't catching a LeBlanc. Let's just clear the wave.
So, Scout gets away with his life for one of the first times this game. Spear's gonna land. Oh my god!
What? What is that damage, man? Hung just deleted. I mean, this is just... is this over? Like, BLG are snowballing so hard.
Well, let's see how we got to this point. We'll return to that question a little bit later, because the way they get ahead in this game is by picking these 2v2s, 3v3s without the Ornn there to be a frontline and be an engager. This feels a little bit awkward. There's a lot of mobility still from LNG, and we see Tristana jumping in later. this was a chance for a reset. You think maybe if Scout and Tarzan can get someone low enough, maybe Gala with Emilio can get enough work done, but the damage is already done. It's, again, the timing is off. BLG are always there, just a second earlier to the play than you are.
Feels that way. Gala trying to make something happen, but doesn't have the damage at this point. Doesn't have the teammates there either to sustainably stay in the fight.
Sorry. Did you see on the scoreboard at the top there, just like LNG's logo, just like a little emote popped out and said, LNG, nice. Just after they lost that play? That feels like a bit of BM for folks.
The funny thing is, this is their arena, so that's their own production team BMing them. As Yagao has found Hung and nearly one-shots him. Hung is just on the receiving end of this game so far as Yagao gets dived. Nice kill from Scout here. And LNG finally get a bit of something for themselves as Bin. He's just running at Scout. Full steam ahead here from the Crocodile. Wants Tarzan now. Wants anyone he can find. Hung the target. Gets kicked in the face by a football. We've all been there, Bin. Back when we were 10 or 11. But Elk will finish the kill off as Hung taken out. Didn't have his ult available. And he just ran at him. Bin just literally ran at them.
No flash on Hung, and again, the Milio is not really that tanky, and apparently neither is the Ornn.
I mean, what do you say about a game like this? This is like watching solo queue. BLG are just smurfing on LNG right now. It's not even close.
The thing is, though, it looks like solo queue because this is exactly the way that BLG want to be playing this. They don't want Zika to be stood in front of his carries, able to use that Ornn ult to disrupt the CC combo that BLG have. BLG are just getting the vision control, getting into the enemy jungle, and they're playing their comp out as a really well-done snowball. Bin?
Bin just solo walks at the tower from behind, finishes it off. There's nothing LNG can even do about it, because if they start a fight, there's no way they win. I say that TP committed to here. Yagao has his available as well, as Elk gets a bit of sustain. The Ornn Horn procs on in. They'll find the AD carry. Can they find more? 2 kills so far, as Gala needs to get these resets and get the fight going here. Bin over the wall trying to escape. Gala chases him here. Can he find more though? TP now from Yagao. This is a really late TP into the fight. They want a 2v4. BLG, they will never say no to a fight. As Yagao has to back away just a little bit. Hung, stunned up but had the shield. And I take it back. BLG, the first fight I've ever seen them say no to.
Yagao didn't have teleport at the start of that play. He was in top lane and LNG found the timing with about 10 seconds left on the Syndra TP. If that had come through, got to imagine that BLG might have been able to even turn this around. The burst is still so disgusting from Shun. You're still in Italy, though, once you get to the point where it's not a 2v2 or a 3v3 and you have to deal with 4 angry teammates standing around the body of the person you just swiped through, gets a little bit more difficult after that point. So LNG at least getting some gold back. It's a lot to bring back, though, in total. BLG still have that CC combo and a lot of wards to play around in the enemy jungle.
That they do. Night Harvester picked up here by Shun as well. Will we see Static Shiv on the Nidalee is the question alongside that Night Harvester. So far, not seeing it on Scout either. Kind of surprised, considering this is that patch. This is, you know, the has been the standard, just rushing the Static Shiv first on the LeBlanc. But Scout going kind of classic with the Luden's first item here. See if he can get any semblance of the level of damage.
So I think a lot of it is because you can see that Scout played the early lane very well. When you take the fleet footwork and you go towards the Static Shiv, it's less about the first few levels of pressure. LNG, of course, didn't really get enough off of that now because Scout is, sadly, watching the rest of his team go down a significant amount of gold. But you're absolutely right. The Static Shiv's not going to come in from there. And it really has to be built as a first item, it does feel like. So not... I suppose, luckily, not going to see that item. It's one of those things where you see it for a couple of games and you go, wow, this is fun and new. But just like mid lane Tryndamere or the Garen Yuumi, you then sit there 2 weeks later and you go, I would quite like this to be gone now.
Yeah, well, we'll see how long it lasts, won't we? We have the next patch coming in a few days in the LPL. I forget exactly which day that was.
The 26th, I think, the 26th.
26th. So not too long left on this patch. We'll see how that's going to change everything. Is that the patch for Triforce buffs? Honestly, I feel like the patches have been so big this split. I'm kind of losing track of which big change was on which patch. It's all getting a bit jumbled up.
I just rock up to a game on the day and I go, are they building Static Shiv? Oh, this is the patch which is buffed then. Oh, I guess they're not building Triforce. Maybe that's nerfed next patch or something, right? It's been a lot of big changes back to back because we had so many of those AD carry itemization changes in it. I think Trifle's getting nerfed in Powerful 2. Tarzan's caught. He's getting absolutely blown up.
Moonlight Vigil is there as well. Tarzan still surviving for now. The Calibrum goes wide. It's Shun in trouble instead. The Snowball halted in his tracks, but El goes in and finds Tarzan. Goes down with his own bit of damage there. It's absolute chaos, but LNG are somehow winning it out. Zika goes in with no support from his team. Totally different page to the rest of the gang here, as Yagao definitely has the damage to finish this one off alongside Bin. And it's a bonus gifted over to BLG at the end of the fight.
Thing is, you can see what happens when you start bringing 4v4s into play, 5v5s into the play. LNG are starting to get some kills, particularly onto this Nidalee, which is just way too squishy to be playing into the dive assassination kind of playstyle, into a Cyclone and everything else. It's very close to getting a straight-up kill. The Milio healing buys just enough time for Tarzan to save his own life. The rest of the team rallies around it. This is a little bit worrying now for BLG, because if you can't really start pulling ahead in terms of one of these big fights into a Baron, into the end of the game, this is going to get worse as the game goes on.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of got to respect the sheer commitment to the play from Elk there. That was full-on suicide, but
yeah,
just wanted the kill. Just straight up wanted the kill. I feel like BLG are in... Like, you know, I said it looked like a solo queue game. It
it's
looked
like
like
he's
they were
switching
smurfing.
through his weapons. Like, is there a Nidalee in one of my weapons? Oh, you know what? I'll just flash. It's fine. I can be melee too.
I'll just flash Gale Force Duskwave. I'm sure we'll finish the kill. He didn't even finish him off. Like, Tarzan went down to Yagao in the end. But it feels like BLG are also in the mindset of we're smurfing right now and have gone into full solo queue mode. I do just want to quickly mention CS so far for Bin. Way more than 10 per minute so far. 240 at the 22-minute mark.
Ridiculous.
Not something you see often on Renekton.
And what we're also seeing as well is, look how little Zika is getting access to. Again, one of the issues with LNG had in Spring Playoffs was that Zika just kind of got just got outvalued by a lot of our top laners in the LPL. When he wasn't on something like the Renekton or the Jax, he could really struggle. He's on the Ornn this game. It's a hard matchup against the Renekton, but he is also having to be forced to lose farm to get his carries ahead. He has to group if he's not there with the team. It's a very awkward situation for LNG, but it doesn't stop the fact that now he's just made a paper to BLG's comp.
He definitely is. Chemtep Drake spawning onto the map as Gala uses his W. Means On has a potential window to try and find a pick here. Shun stepping forward as well. It's LNG threatening in the Baron area so that BLG can't take the Drake for free. On the target as Tarzan goes in with a Cyclone off the back of the Ornn Horn, but in the meantime, Zik has been left alone by the rest of his team, and Bin is shredding him. Top laner down as On forced to flash. BLG on the other side of the map, but they're actually chasing for more. I thought they'd go for towers in the mid lane, but forget that. They want blood, and Gala is the target. Flash available for Gala, and he's gonna need it. You know he's gonna need it. Doesn't even get a chance to use it. Yagao in the meantime has gone for a 1v3, and Scout pushed over the wall, taken down, his clone taken down at least, jumps over the wall himself. TP available if he wants that to try and escape as he goes underneath the tower, but no, dashes back away, and Bin is chasing up the rest of the team. Hung will go down. It's absolute carnage, Nomura.
BLG do not want more than 4 champions on any separate screen. Bin says, I'm too close, I'm gonna go to mid lane. Finally, Scout falls, and BLG are absolutely detesting the fact that they had to play a 5v5 very briefly. Scatter LNG to the winds, are going to take a Baron off the back of it. They are absolutely playing this composition out to the up to 9s. They are not slowing down.
I love that they go, oh, what was that, LNG? You want to try and threaten Baron, do you? Well, we'll take them. We'll take the Baron. Nearly swore there. Just that sheer excitement of how BLG are playing the game out. Tarzan chased away from the Drake. You get nothing, LNG.
Good day. You lose. You get nothing. They are forced out of the Chocolate Factory, and BLG are going to go towards this Chemtech Dragon. They get themselves the Baron. They get themselves the Dragon. LNG. This is the problem now, where you have fallen behind. Again, the critical mass. They've missed the important sermon, which is, even if you group up with a tank top laner, they still kind of have to be tanky at some point. He's useful for his ult, the Ornn is great at that point, but trying to engage onto this composition is absolutely hellish. And as soon as that engage doesn't kind of get everyone grouped up into the right place, and it splits down into multiple 2v1s and 2v2s, and I suppose the 1v3 from Yagao, a little bit more awkward. LNG don't have the tools to keep up with the huge damage and mobility that BLG are bringing to bear. It's helped out by the fact that On hits a miraculous hook out of the middle of nowhere onto one of the most mobile players on the enemy team. BLG just styling right now.
The TP as well to make sure they can keep on chasing kills. 10,000 gold lead. We said they need Snowball with this comp. Well, Snowball they have. Can they finish the job is the question. The comp does, I was going to say sort of fall off a cliff, but actually nearly late game damage when you're building pure AP. Still pretty scary. Yagao's not going to fall off. Elk's not going to fall off. And Blitzcrank, one hook can still change the game no matter how late it is. And argue, actually, the hooks go up in value later on. So it's only really been, but even Renekton, since the new items, is better late than he ever was before.
I think the difference maker is the fact that Zika's just not tanky. If you can just tank all the spears and the hooks with your Ornn, it's a little bit different, but you can see how much threat they feel like they're under. They're pulling another ult.
It's On as the target here. He's been picking them, and they want a bit of revenge. Tarzan, in the meantime, trying to body block the rest of the squad, but Zika's gone too deep on this one. No damage out from Yagao on the ult there, though. He said we need him to be a bit tankier. He's certainly got a bit of MR.
It's the price of being a mage and having to choose either dealing damage to tanks with Leandries or to other people with the Ludens. He's gone for the full magic pen, so Zika not going to be completely one-shot. He still has to back. He still doesn't have his ult, and BLG have everyone but on the board. Scouts jumping forward. Don't know if they can achieve much here, though.
Ooh, spear slightly wide from Shun, and uncharacteristic mistake is a wave crashing in the mid lane. LNG surely have to go and deal with that. Remember, still sole point for BLG. Drake will be up in 3 minutes' time. I don't think they're going to be able to get much with the Baron. I do love the confidence that they just stick around, despite the fact On went down. They know it's really difficult for LNG to actually find them and start a fight. They're so mobile across this composition. That said, Scout almost finds Shun.
He's hit himself 2.5 items. That Ludens is, of course, adding some magic pen from the Mythic passive. And being basically sole AP, of course, one adds a little bit into the equation. We're against not very much magic resist. Scout might be able to dissuade someone from BLG from jumping forward, particularly On and Shun when they position aggressively. I think Scout is in a point where you can threaten them, particularly with that Banshee's shield protecting from something like that Miracle Blitzcrank hook we saw before. Still, though, 10,000 gold lead there, about 9,000 rather. I can do maths, I'm great at that. But LNG very, very down in terms of the combat stats they have available. Yagao just hit 100 stacks on his passive, so he will start executing below 15% HP on the Syndra ult too. BLG, their pick combo is still very perilous for LNG to look towards.
Yeah, worth mentioning as well that we talked about the lack of Leandri, so he'll struggle with Zika. If he ults Zika when Zika's already kind of low, like that 15% execute, that does significant value against specifically Zika. We'll see what LNG have in the tank, though. Remember, this is Game 2. BLG already won Game number 1. Looking like they're smurfing in Game 2, but have started to slow down a little bit. Or, not intentionally, but they've hit a bit of a roadblock in LNG, who are now fighting back. Scout trying his best on this LeBlanc to find picks. We saw him attempting onto Shun. And Gala as well has remained reasonably untouched. Now 3 items on that Tristana. You give 1 kill over to Gala, he gets those resets. You can very easily lose a fight.
Yeah, so BLG needs to be very careful that they don't get overconfident. Typically, they have been very good at finding the timings and the angles for their fights. But it's, as you said, a little bit dangerous going into the Ornn items starting to come through as well. Even someone like Tarzan on the Wukong. Wukong is a very good scaling damage jungler. Yes, he can get blown up. Yes, he can get CC'd and put into death. But if he gets onto the backline, that might be enough to put Gala into to a very dangerous position for BLG. They need to find a way to break the base. Typically, that happens through Baron. That's up in a minute. Until that happens, see what they've got. Dragon coming up in 30 seconds. BLG, they can choose to leave maybe both of these objectives up if they want to force LNG into a difficult spot. Typically, that works in favor of the team that's behind. I think BLG want to take that Baron, though, so they can close out the game.
On with his patented Everfrost Blitzcrank, will be able to deny the engage onto Bin. You can see a sort of attempted pick from the side of LNG, but now with 4 people on the bottom side of the map, this opens up the mid lane. Elk can just charge on in. Scout will try and threaten, but the tower's going to go down. Whoa!
What?
Where did he go? Scout with a magic trick right there as the knockup comes out from Zika. Do they actually have the damage to fight this? BLG being taken apart as Scout goes a little bit too deep on that one. Yak out. gets that 15% that we talked about right there as Bin now. In a 1v1 with Tarzan, Zika moving over, but the Dominus Proc, he can 2v1 this for sure. Zika finds a knockback, but Hung moving over, Tarzan on the red buff. Bin has to try and get out of dodge on this one. In the meantime, Yagao is pushing mid lane. They're buying time for Yagao to open the map up.
Again, this is where you see how BLG have approached this game in terms of a mentality. They don't want to take objective fights. They need to take split fights in the enemy jungle and about wherever they can. They don't commit towards that dragon setup in the way that we always see in this meta. They try and take fights. Apart from that, Yagao has to teleport away, gets an inhibitor for his troubles. But now with jungler down and Elk being taken off the board so early as well, LNG have an opening now to, after that dragon take, set up this Baron and potentially force BLG into one of those 5v5s that they don't really want to take.
Yagao's dropped a ward in LNG's base. I think it'll be cleared away. There we go. Yeah, Scout got rid of that one.
Okay, let's see this.
I was just going to say, Bin had TP available.
He had an overshield.
Whoa.
He had the Severum overshield, and he gets absolutely popped. He was running the exhaust. I think it was off cooldown at the time of that fight. Of course, the spectator gets a little bit weird. We've got to pick around the Baron, though.
Oh, no. And it's Tarzan as well. Couldn't be better for BLG. I wish we could have seen the setup for that, because that pick, if the game wasn't already open for BLG, that certainly opens it.
That's huge. Again, LNG, they would have loved to force BLG into a true front-to-back 5v5. They have the items now. Scout's doing damage, Gala's doing damage, but that kind of pick is what BLG can always do. Tarzan falling at the worst possible moment. Felt like LNG were onto something for a little bit. Now they have supers to deal with the mid lane. Baron buff across the board. They're going to have to find themselves a way to hang on in this game.
Gala's attack speed is off the chain right now. He is, the speed at which he annihilated that super minion, he is ready to fight if the fight comes his way. Almost level 16 as well. So keep your eyes on Gala. Good Bella's breath from Zika, but it won't really matter here as Scout goes in onto Elk, but won't find the damage he found before. And now with the Baron, they can keep this one going. Zika finds the double knock up there onto On, but in the meantime, Tarzan with a clone buys space for the team. Bin threatening in the mid lane though, and this is what BLG want. Long range, non-committal.
So you saw BLG, they survived that cast of the Ornn ultimate. It's at its third rank, it'll be a low cooldown, but BLG, they can use that that timing window nonetheless.
Oh, they're just gonna pull him in. He can't ult if he's dead. That's what BLG say, but they all die as well. Scout doing so much work as Gala jumps in to finish off Elk. Double kill for Gala as he looks for Bin as well. That's GA, but no reset to try and get onto On. He can just auto him though. The Hex Splash is too slow, but Bin turns them into shreds. Triple kill instantly on the Renekton, and that's going to be game.
That should have been the game-saving play from Scout and Gala, but there's a bin waiting for them. They're thrown into it in Game 2. What madness!
Absolute insanity of a second game from BLG, and Bin especially, both games in the series looking absolutely unstoppable. Doesn't even walk with his team. Look at this Giga Chad behavior, just storms
Look
away.
Look at me, I am the team now.
He's
Triple
got
kills at
things
the
to
Nexus.
Yeah, he's got a reservation waiting. That's why they 2-0'd so fast. You know, he's charging out of the arena.
That, in any other game, that double distort onto 4 people at the Nexus from Scout, despite the cost of his life, would have saved the game. He almost one-shots the entire team at BLG, and BLG still win that. That is absurd. It's a very unique kind of composition coming out of BLG. When you play something like that in Italy and the Renekton, you know post 20 minutes, you need to really think about ending that game. You need to find any way to do it. You can't commit to those 5v5s, especially against the huge range and engage coming out from LNG. And they nearly made it work at LNG. It got closer than I think a lot of people would give them credit for. I think that's credit to the likes of the playmaking from Scout, who had those incredible damage numbers in late game. But BLG, man, they just find a way to make it work.
They're just so much fun to watch, aren't they? BLG, they're absolute nutters, and I love it every single time. I think Bin, man of the match for me, at very least, off of the back of that last fight. Yagao, though, actually had some really great moments as well. I mean, Shun was dominating the early game. I feel like you could pretty much pick anyone from the side of BLG. But I think that last moment is going to clinch it for Bin. I will say, My father-in-law is visiting. He's downstairs right now. I've just been screaming from the top of my lungs here in the bedroom upstairs. I am curious how that conversation is going to go in 10 minutes.
Well, I have my brother next door, and every so often when we have the early starts, I wake him up with the sound check, and then he can tell whether he wants to watch by how loud I'm being in this room. So I hope he's wrapped with attention, as you should be as well. It is such a pleasure to watch BLG play out these games. But this is still a reminder that, that LNG still have a lot of potential, and they have to work out some stuff. It felt like, particularly in the early game, they bought into a lot of these fights. I think Scout in the early game struggled